Hi, everyone. If you're joining us live, if you're up early on the West Coast, it would be 4:09 a.m. here in Central Time. If you're in the mountains, it would be what, 7 or no, 5. And here in the Midwest, which many Americans call flyover country, as if we don't matter. Uh, but I think it's a great place to be, let me tell you. Uh,
Mhm.
It is 6:09, and if you're on the East Coast, it is 7:09. But in Poland, Zbyszek, it's what, one something?
It's just lunchtime,
It's
1 o'clock.
lunchtime. Well,
Yeah,
if you're in London and Greenwich time, it's 12, right? High noon,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, it's
And then
lunchtime.
what time would it be in Ukraine right now?
It will be a little later, which is 2 o'clock
So they're
p.m.
1 hour difference. So
Yeah.
does Poland only have one time zone?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All
Yes.
right. Well, I'm sorry, but the United States has one. Well, if you count Hawaii, man, we have a lot of time zones.
It's true. Yeah, it's
When I
very
when I
different.
lived when I worked in Kazakhstan with you in 19 between 1994 and 1997, we were 13 time zones away from my mother. So whenever
Mm.
we spoke on the phone, it was like the opposite.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
it was a
long
big
way away.
difference.
It was a big
Big
difference.
difference.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Last time I was speaking to Spishik, we had a slight internet problem, but today we're great. I sound okay, Spishik?
Yeah, hear you
Okay.
very well.
Yeah, I we had some internet problems, so we decided that we were going to pick up on the conversation. And last time, Spishik, if you want to hear more from Spishik and hear about how we met and all, you can look at previous episodes on my YouTube channel, Villa Scriptura. And I always post these live interviews again on Facebook, so they're always available to watch. But you can hear a lot from previous times. But Zbyszek goes in every 6 weeks with a Dutch organization, a humanitarian. Isn't that what you would call it? A humanitarian organization, Zbyszek?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they and
Totally agree.
they they go in regularly. They don't just drop off stuff with parachutes at a distance, but they go in as real people meeting other real people who are hurting, and some of them are children and grandpas and grandmas and parents and men who are trying to be courageous Ukrainians and fight against this huge beast called Russia, who's aggressively come in and tried to take territory away from a sovereign nation. And he is going in with stoves, clothing, food, anything they can bring in to encourage the people. But every time he reports with us, Spishik is a fantastic storyteller. And I mean that
Hmm.
in the best sense of the word. I don't mean he tells fables or myths, but he tells us the truth, the unvarnished truth you will not hear on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. You'll hear the unvarnished truth from Spishik, and some of it's sad, and some of it's tragic, and some of it's heartwarming, because you're dealing with people, and anytime you deal with
Mm.
people, we're complicated creatures, and we have stories, and thankfully, right now, people in Poland and people here in the United States are not in the midst of a war, thankfully. Uh, but we as Christians know that that shouldn't deter us from reaching out. Jesus calls us to reach out to people who are hurting in this world, and that's what Spishik's doing. So last time we were together, he was talking about these landmines, and he had some playing cards. And so I'm just going to let Spishik talk, and while I listen, and he's going to tell us more about what it was
Mm.
like the last time he was here. So
Yeah,
Spishik, please go ahead.
I've got it from our Ukrainian friends. I've got those playing cards. You can see.
Right.
They are nice with a nice Ukraine map. It's a big country. It's one funny thing that we've learned because we traveled by a van from border Poland, Ukraine towards the east border of Ukraine with Russia. Very close, sometimes even 15 kilometers from the border. And it's a big country. It's not like in this United States, but for Europe, it's a big country. So we learned that. But they say that the part of Ukraine which is filled up with mines is of the size of Great Britain.
Wow.
I mean, it's when you pass Kharkiv, you start to see the signs of, be careful mines next to the road, to the fields, forest, and you should not really enter the forest. And it's very difficult to even getting out of the car, because you may step on something. So our friends gave us cards, and cards like for a poker, to play poker. And I think that everyone who plays cards knows that part of the card game is also always risk. You need to risk if you want to win, because you are not sure what others have there. And with mines is the same thing, isn't it? You really, your life is in risk, and it's one thing which slows down the counteroffensive that Ukrainians are doing, is that they have to cross the mines fields with equipment, even the one that Ukraine received from the West, and also just with troops. And it's very difficult because the mines are everywhere. And another thing which happened, if you know that all the Kherson region, which is next to Odessa, not far from the Black Sea, it was flooded because the Russians blew up the dam, and one of the problems were mines that they were getting up, and were cleaned from the fields, and you don't know where they went. So it's crazy. But
Can I ask you a quick question,
yeah.
Zbyszek? Because here in the West, we get a lot of propaganda that the
Uh-huh.
Russians plant, and I hear the propaganda all the time. Well, some of the time from even Facebook people will say something about Ukraine, and I'll go, "That's why do you think that?" And I think part of the propaganda is the Russians say, "Well, the Ukrainians blew up their own dams," and which
Okay.
I find utterly ridiculous. What would you say to a person who says, "Oh no, the Ukrainians blew up the dam"?
I mean, it's what's difficult is these days. Okay, sorry. First thing, Russian propaganda is everywhere. I mean, they've done a big homework before this war, and they have, people everywhere in all Europe, in the States, in Africa, everywhere. They really push on. They push so much that when Lavrov, yes, the minister of foreign affairs, was on a meeting with 120 representatives of different countries, he said, and we know we have this problem because Ukraine attacked us, and almost all of them reacted like you did. They laughed loudly, and they do this, and Russian propaganda is really working hard.
Mhm.
But the thing is that before the war started, the Russians were saying we will not come into Ukraine. They're our brothers. We won't do that. And it was like for 2 years or 3 years, they were saying, no, 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 no war. We are against any war. We won't do that. In 2014, when they entered Crimea and the east side, they were saying there were no Russian troops. Today, they show how many Russian soldiers were killed during that time. In 2014, they show their where they were buried and the names, and they say these are our soldiers who died for Russia. And years ago they were saying there is no Russian soldier.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that. Then just 6 months before the war, they were saying, "Oh, we just have a military trainings not far from the border and also in Belarus, but it's just training. It's we can do it. Everyone can do that." And the training ended in the Russian soldiers going with tanks and not only into Ukraine, and they did not even know that they are going to the war. Because many of the soldiers, when they were captured, they were saying, "But we were on a training. We didn't know it was Ukraine even."
Right.
So it's this thing, and every time, like Bucha, we visited Bucha, and we saw the places where people were killed. the European, other places where Russians were saying, no, we did not kill anybody there. And international crime investigations showed that there was crime. They were saying we were not taking Ukrainian children to Russia, but Russian families adopted Ukrainian children. So where did they come from? So the problem is that today it's hard to believe in any words that Russia say. They have their own truth. You see? So even if they say, we did not blow up that dam, I mean, there is no time to listen to this.
Yes,
There's
right.
no, because they lie all the time. They lie to international community, but they also lie to their own people.
Yeah.
They said, our soldiers are not really dying. There are just a few dying. And a couple of days ago, their minister just said, yes, we lose a lot of soldiers, And then Ukrainians are moving forwards. What do they see? They see all these buried people, and I mean the soldiers, Russian soldiers. They see all of them, not always taken to Russia, and so many died, and they are lying to. They say we will pay the soldiers, and they soldiers are not paid.
So do you think that this will end up the way that the Afghanistan conflict ended up, where the Russian people started realizing, kind of like Vietnam for us, that the casualty level is getting so high that the people get, disenchanted and aren't behind the war, and then that most people say that, the Afghanistan situation led to part of the reasons for the downfall of the Soviet Union was what happened after Afghanistan. When the Russians invaded. Yeah.
No. Russia is not the Western country, and during this war we can see that the mentality is not European mentality, and they are not looking for the truth. So today they want Soviet Union, which means they haven't learned much from the past, and they haven't learned much from the last 30 years of freedom. Because they are all saying now, most of them are saying that the Soviet Union was good, and the Soviet Union was the best time for Russia, and they want to come back to that. So I think it won't be as the West does, not like Germany after the Second World War, that learned their lesson, and for 70 years they live in sort of shame, and they have to work in their own society to feel the value of themselves, and they have this past on themselves. The Russians don't do that. They don't. They just repeat the story. They just wait when they get again strong, when they get the stronger leader, and everyone is ready to follow. They just close their eyes and they follow. So it's very different. They don't learn from history. They repeat the same mistakes. So I don't think they will do that.
I'm going to say one more thing, and then I want you to continue what you were doing with the playing cards. When we lived in Kazakhstan, the family that lived across from our apartment, that was in the Samal 2 district. You remember that apartment? You were there many times doing Bible studies, Zbyshek. And across the hall was a guy named Birjan. He wanted me to call him Bruce because he loved Bruce Lee. Anyway, he lived with his mother. So it was just he and his mother in a one-room apartment with a giant Great Dane dog, size of a pony. And he told me once, he said, I like Stalin. He said, yeah, he did some. And I said, didn't he do some awful things? And I rattled off the things I knew Stalin had done. And he said, yeah, he did some awful things, but he was I think he said strogi. He used the word, isn't that strong? He was strogi. He was strong. He was a man of steel. He was, and I could tell he was infatuated with this idea of a strong man, having a strong man.
Yeah.
And I think every country wants a good leader. We want, we're constantly
No.
talking about that
But
here.
the definition is different. Definition is
Yes, I think that's the key. That, like you said, he doesn't have the European, or they don't have the European or American mentality where you can question, if your leaders
yeah,
start doing
exactly.
things that you don't
cannot
like.
question.
We have voting that, and well, we hope it's good.
Today,
But
today they say that the most unemployed profession now in Russia is a lawyer, because nobody needs lawyers anymore. Because it doesn't matter what you did, the government decides what to do with you, and lawyers don't help. They have no job because they don't need to represent you, because nobody can I mean, it doesn't matter whatever they say.
Yeah.
So it's very, very strange. So we've got those cards, and I want to share with it because it's interesting. We've got those cards from our friends in Ukraine, and yes, they're playing poker, yes, but I need to change a little bit the screen so you can see what I try to show you. It did work better a little bit, but we have in Europe, we have this game, we call it war.
Yeah.
So you have two people playing, and you put the cards, and the stronger card wins. Yes.
Yeah. So the number, the 8 would win.
So 8 wins.
Right.
And this is the game of the war game. Yes.
Yes.
And now again. Yes.
Yep. Jack wins.
Jack wins. So this is how you play the war game.
Right.
Look how nicely I put it. All of them, the same guy wins, huh?
Yeah.
I know how to play poker. So but what's interesting is what you have here on these cards. As you can see, these are explosives that you can find on the fields next to your house in Ukraine now. And the land of the size of Great Britain is filled up with all of this. So this one wins. And for us, the most important is this card when you travel. Yes, because this is the most, for us, the most dangerous mine that we see. It's everywhere.
Is there a name? Is there a name for that mine? Is it?
The name is here.
Okay. NT. I can't see it too well. Okay.
Yeah, but I show you. Yeah, maybe later you can. And these mines we can find, and I have some of them, of course, empty. But this is what it is. And these are like hundreds. These are like thousands. Somebody says that maybe 1 million of these.
Oh, wow.
And they are blew up from the air with a rocket, and they just are thrown, in
like
on
shrapnel.
the land.
Yeah.
Yes. Also dropped from planes or helicopters, and were not only on the front line, very far from the front line as well, into villages, on the roads, and a lot of people are losing their legs, feet, and maybe some are killed because of this kind of mines.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing was the last time we were in Ukraine, and we were in one of the villages, and they showed us those mines, and they were working in the gardens. They had to clean the garden from those mines, and then they worked there. And I remember I came back, and I went for a walk with my dog to the park, and I throw a ball, and I went, across the grass. And believe me, I was looking in the grass.
This is in Poland. You're back in
Yeah,
Poland.
yeah.
But your brain is thinking, oh, you're conditioned to think mines are everywhere.
Happens. I mean, it's good that it happens, because it means you learn to be careful.
Yeah.
But you see what happens. And they say that it will take probably a couple of decades to clean the fields out of this stuff. And pity, but most of the fields in Ukraine, in the east side of Ukraine, will not be used this year. Again, it's the second year that it will just stand, because the military is not ready to clean all of this yet.
Yeah. Can I just say
because they
one
are
thing?
just busy with other things.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. If you're younger and you're watching this, and I mean by younger, I mean if you're maybe 30 years old or less, you're probably maybe familiar with the show The Crown, and you probably know about Princess Diana. Well, when Princess Diana, after she was separated from Prince Charles, King Charles now, she would go to minefields and she would be involved in the mine cleanup, and that was kind of a thing that she was known for, one of many things. And I think she was in Bosnia, if I recall. She went to Bosnia and maybe Africa. I
Mm.
can't remember, but she went to a few places. And I remember her wearing that big, big flak jacket and the helmet and all
Oh
of the
my God.
stuff. But anyway, that was such a image sort of emblazoned in my mind of what it was like to clear a war zone, and for years after the Bosnia conflict, they were still cleaning mines up.
Yeah, yeah, and it will take a long time, and especially now when you can't really do it, and but people are tempted to do it because they want to do something in the gardens, especially that in Ukraine, part of their income is from their own garden.
Do they have
If
dachas like they have in Russia?
they have dachas, but also many of them have their houses and a little garden next to the house, and they have their carrot there and potatoes and other things that they feed themselves. They collect it during the summertime, and then they keep it for the winter.
So
And
let me ask you too. So would a pensioner who doesn't have a lot of money, would they maybe sell some of their products at the market also to make extra
yeah,
money?
they sell it. Yes, of course they sell it on the markets, but don't expect markets in the Western idea. A market is a long street in part of the town where you just stand with a box and you put things on the box,
Sure.
and it's how you sell it.
Yeah.
In many cases, of course, there are markets, but many people, older people, because in the markets you need to pay for the table,
Yeah.
and they just sell it. They come from the village, not far from the station, train station maybe, or bus station, and they just stand there with a bag and they sell a few kilograms
Sure.
of vegetables,
I
and it
remember it
helps
well.
them. Yeah, it helps them to survive, or they make those jams, those
Yeah.
which are great, but they won't be able the second year. And we don't, in the West we don't think about it, but for many people this is the main products they eat all the year. When they were sitting, and it's what they tell us, they were sitting in the basements last winter, last spring, after the February 24th, and they were eating what they had in their basements.
Mm.
But this year they have not much left because they couldn't work on their fields last year. And I am afraid that next winter will be difficult because they won't have enough of their own products. So yeah, so like last year, I mean last winter, we were bringing a lot of warm clothes and heaters because Russians were destroying all this infrastructure, stations, power stations, so people could not have lights, could not have heating systems. Cities, villages, they lost it. So we are bringing a lot of things that could help them to warm up, sleeping bags, different covers, and winter clothes. But I think that this winter we will even need to bring those food,
Mm.
those like jam, like things that they used to eat, but they used to have it gathered from their own garden, and it
Sure.
won't happen this year. You see, so those mines are really, it's a terrible thing. You can lose your feet, leg, your life. The animals are killed on the fields, as you can imagine, because
Ah.
I think it's like 2 pounds weight that is enough to blow up this mine.
So
Uh,
dogs, lives, horses,
yeah,
cows.
Yeah. It's very easy to
Mm.
to kill them. So this is a sad part of it, and it also shows that it's a long-term, not only conflict. We hope the conflict will end sooner than later, but to coming back to life for people who, like Ukraine, lives probably 80%, 70% of their life. Their profit, their style of life comes from the land. They are probably the big in Europe. Probably they are the biggest field, and they could feed
Don't
all the
people
Europe.
don't people call Ukraine the breadbasket of
Yeah,
Europe or something like
yeah.
that?
But you
Yeah.
see, part of this breadbasket was really broken, and probably the biggest part is the broken part of the basket was for just personal life, for there's villagers who already were poor, but now it will be even harder. So the mines are very dangerous, but they are also bringing terrible consequences for a normal life for these people.
Will that affect
So
prices does that affect prices in Europe on food overall just because there's nothing,
it
because
does
of the
affect highly prices also in Ukraine of food. It's
yeah.
really going up. And the prices, of course, it's not only in Europe, it's also in other countries in the world, not just Europe. And also, of course, also it's shortage of food, and we will see what next year will bring. This year was very difficult because, because it was just the war was unpredictable. It was hard to work on the fields.
What do they
This year,
do they export wheat or what are the main
oil,
oil, wheat?
sunflower,
Okay.
Berkeley, Berkeley, this kind of things. Yeah,
Okay.
honey,
Uh,
a lot of honey. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to share this time with you from traveling there, because of course we talk about the war, but for us it's also important what the war is leaving these people with.
yes.
And one thing is danger of everyday life. The second are destroyed houses, they are villages, towns, and when will they be rebuilt? And the third, I think now we are talking about it even more, because if the war continues, it will be very difficult on children and their education. And they may become really, children who lost 2-3 years of education.
Well, not only that, but then you add on the COVID, all the COVID
Yeah,
stuff and,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
how that's affected
before. Yeah.
education. Yeah, it's everything. It's just
So when you look at the future, where do you
yeah,
get the doctors? Where do you get engineers? When the
yeah.
basic
Wow.
even education is really difficult these days. But we will
Mm,
talk about later because we are investigating some very important subjects on children, and we want to work on that as well.
yeah.
But for today we don't have much time. But
Well,
this is what
I
I wanted to share. Yeah.
yes, that was great. I like the theme of the gardening, but then how that led to the consequences, because as you were talking, I was picturing myself in Kazakhstan on those streets buying sunflower seeds from pensioners,
Yeah.
buying milk. I had a
Yeah. That's
woman,
right.
an older woman who would come down from the mountains in Almaty and she'd sell milk and it was delicious milk. And so I would always buy from her and she and I kind of would converse and I got to know her personally, through that. And yeah, so and they're everywhere. People were, and that wasn't even during a war zone. I met a woman from Chechnya who was a doctor, and she was selling ice cream. She
Wow.
came out of the war from Chechnya, and I said, well,
Yeah.
but you're a doctor and you're selling ice cream. Well, that's what I have to do, to make ends meet. So yeah, so
Mhm.
it's a real thing. Well, Zbyszek, what are maybe three things that we could pray for, and then what's something
Mm.
if a person wanted to support what's going on financially, how would you direct them at this time?
I would direct them mainly to you first,
Okay, all
for
right.
now still. Just be in touch. We we are looking still. I'm sorry, I have no received answer, but we will have an account that we can use in the States, and then it's the easiest way to help financially as well.
Yeah, I told
We'll have it
Zbyshek
very
that
soon. Yeah,
a lot of Americans and probably others, because of the tax situation, they like to get a
yeah,
tax
of
deduction receipt.
course.
So Zbyszek is working on
Yeah,
a situation with I think an American group or something, and your Polish church, and trying to figure out how we can dispense those tax receipts. But certainly, if that doesn't matter to you and you're still interested in giving, Zbyszek is on support. Am I correct, Zbyszek? You're not doing construction work anymore?
yeah. Not now.
Okay.
Now I'm mostly in Ukraine.
He's full-time humanitarian worker and servant of the Lord. So if you're interested, I can tell you that Zbyszek's an honest guy. He's not going to squander your money on private jets or vacations to Tahiti. He's an honest guy, and he's going in every
To
6
Odessa.
weeks.
Vacation to Odessa.
There you go, or Sochi or something. Yeah. Well, maybe not Sochi.
Sochi. No, it's Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
Russia.
yeah, well, someday we'll have to talk about Georgia and Ukraine and
Mhm.
how they feel about things, because I'd be interested in getting into how the other republics are,
Yeah, yeah.
how they're
It's very
feeling,
important. Yeah,
and
it's
even
very
Eastern
important
Europe.
because yes, and even Eastern Europe, because this war is very confusing to many people,
Uh-huh.
and you know, it's. I know that Russia is far away from the States, but for Europe, it's very confusing
Yeah.
because we
Well,
haven't had a war for so long, and I mean, in this size,
right.
and we are not used to it. I think everyone feels uncomfortable.
Well,
Everyone
and
feels that it's like a bad dream, that
yeah.
people die, but I wake up tomorrow and the life is like it was before, and it won't be, because Russians and Ukrainians won't be friends anymore, and no brothers for sure.
Yes. And
And
as a Polish man, you
yeah,
have a history. You have Auschwitz in your
of course.
country. And
No, but we have no, but not only we have Russians killing thousands of Polish officers during the Second World War on the
right,
Russian side, and
right.
we have German Nazis coming from the west on September 1st during the Second World War. On September 17th, the Russians from Stalin were when entering Poland from the east side of the border,
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
killing.
Yeah.
So of course we have all of this, but like my generation, your generation, we grew up in peace and we believed in it,
Hmm.
and we believe that we've learned lessons that our parents, growing up with their parents who survived the war, they won't have the same memories that their parents had.
Yeah.
But the problem with Russia today is that they want the past, and they want to be proud of the past. They want to show the victory of the Second World War in 2023. It's just
Yeah.
crazy, and we are not ready for it. Mentally, we are not ready for that.
Yeah. Well, before we go, just two things. The first thing is, we talked about financially what you could do, direct
Yeah.
any, if you want to do that and you just feel like God is moving you to give financially, go ahead and get in contact with me and I could recommend what you could do. Again,
Mm.
if the tax deduction thing is not important to you, I can send a Western Union amount of money to Zbyszek's account and we can do it that way. But Zbyszek, what are some things we could do? I mean, aside from your safety, of course, because he is, after all,
Yeah,
the
safety. It's
brave.
it's the war. It's the
I
war.
call
Yeah,
I call Zbyszek the bravest Polish
yeah,
grandpa I know. And
yeah, yeah,
Dave
yeah.
Canals.
That's right.
Do you remember Dave Canals?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, he was over
Of
here with
course, I
Teresa.
remember.
They
Yeah.
were missionary friends of ours, and Zbyszek knows them. And I told him Zbyszek is the bravest Polish grandpa I know. And David looked at me with a smile on his face and said, "Tim, he's the only Polish grandpa you know."
He's right,
So,
isn't he?
yeah,
Maybe,
he's right.
maybe.
It's true. It's true.
But of course, safety is very important, because this war is strange a little bit, because you never know where the missiles will hit. and you can the last trip we were at the in May and June. It was so loud, and in every town we were, and even village, there were missiles coming, not towards us, but and we haven't seen it for like 6 months.
Well, you had that video with that someone in the Dutch organization.
Yeah,
Or, what's the name of the organization again? Remind me. It's
Dutch Civilian Action.
Dutch Civilian Action, and they were recording. I posted it on Facebook actually, and the
Yeah.
guy was handing a little boy, a Ukrainian boy, some things, and there were explosions going off, and the kid didn't
Yeah.
even flinch. The kid
Yeah,
just, it's
this is
like, oh yeah,
crazy.
this is every day we hear this.
Yeah, it is, because it is. It
It's like
is, and
London during the Blitz, you know?
yeah, no, but seriously. So it's one for sure, this thing. And the second thing is that we connect with people, with Ukrainians. We are there not just bringing food, we are bringing also hope and courage. We have long hours of conversations. We have a lot of hugs, but also we need to be patient and talk to them, and not always they are right with their emotions, because they are full of hate and anger, and you try to calm down because it doesn't help.
Hmm.
So we need to have some wisdom, but also kind of the good positive feeling towards people, and we meet a lot of all these days, I would say, already very tired people of
Hmm.
the war. I mean, we need to remember that Ukraine, okay, it was poor country in a sense, comparing to other European countries, but still it was a good standard of life. And now you're in the middle of the war. It is very different than if you live on the desert, or if you live very simple life and the war starts. But
Yeah.
if your life is very comfortable, you go to work at 9, you come back by your car, you go to the grocery, you buy what you need, you go and watch football, and then everything stops. Honestly, it stops. You don't know what to do with yourself. I mean, you don't know this kind of life, that you
Hmm.
need to hide somewhere, that you have shortage of food, that every night you are woke up by the alarm and you need to go down or at least hide in a bathroom. I mean, this is a big lesson. I mean, it's not easy for us. I think that many Americans would not understand that the change of style of life is so hard, and uh, and it's really pushing on your brain. So we pray for that we know how to talk to them, because it's stupid to say, "Oh, I know what you feel." I mean,
Right.
I would have no clue what they feel.
Yeah.
Like people who we talked to stay overnight in their houses, and they were for 6 months in the basement, you know, and they were afraid of bombs, and the Russians were shooting other people in their village. I mean, we don't know
Hmm.
what it means.
Think of
But
all the
but
people who are going to have, the trauma, the
oh yeah,
post-traumatic
post,
stress,
yeah.
and all the mental illness issues. Oh man.
Yeah, so yeah, please pray for that, of course, for peace, because it needs to end as soon as possible, and it doesn't matter who is right. But we need Russians to leave the area, to leave Ukraine, and just learn their lesson. So it's important thing. So these are the most important things to really hope that God will help with, because we can't.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Thank you,
Well,
Tim, very
thank you,
much.
Zbyszek, and I know we have a lot more to talk about. So
Yeah, of
please,
course.
let me know if before when's your next trip? Is it July or something? Or
Yeah, next month. Yeah,
okay. Well,
yeah. It's already
if
end
you
of
want to
month.
talk more before your July trip, please
Sure.
let me know, and we will pray for you. And again, if you're interested in financially assisting the Ukrainian people or Zbyszek's ministry, feel free to. You could message me at Facebook Messenger, or you can contact me via email at Timurjan1. That's TIMURZHAN numeral one at gmail.com. So that's how you can contact me, and I can put you in contact with Zbyszek if you have any questions or whatever. But we certainly can get some money over to him if you'd like to do that. And he's doing good work, and so he's an extension of Jesus Christ and in trying to assist people. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Tim, and
All
we'll
right.
be in touch. Yeah.
Okay. Enjoy your lunch and your grandson.
Yeah, and you enjoy your breakfast.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Yes, bye.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.